Here. I am currently in Affinity Designer, which is Affinity's vector graphic tool, and I personally have not used vector graphics in the past. I'm very new to graphic design in general, and I figured that as a first foray into graphic design, that I would go ahead and design my own take on the GeneriSys role-playing game symbols. So I'm going to today spend a little bit of time designing a generic form of the icons that are not copyright Fantasy Flight games, but are still definitely inspired by the FFG icons. For those who don't know, GeneriSys is a role-playing game by Fantasy Flight Games that uses symbols on their dice instead of numbers. So instead of rolling dice, adding a number to it, you roll your dice and you get symbols, and you have successes cancel failure, threat cancels advantage, that kind of thing. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and make my own version of these 6 symbols. On the top row, we have advantage, success, triumph, and the bottom row is our threat, failure, and despair. So first thing I'm going to do is go up into File New. I have it set for type web, document unit pixels. This create artboard is we want to make sure that that is checked, and I will show you what the artboards do in a moment. And the dimensions are 200 by 200 pixels with a DPI of 144. None of these numbers actually mean anything because Affinity Designer is a vector graphics program, which for those of you who don't know a lot about images, you have 2 main types of images. You have vector images and raster images. Raster images are GIFs, PNG, JPEG, all of those. You take a picture on your phone or with a digital camera, that's a raster graphic. What it is a specific resolution with each individual pixel hard-coded into the image. So the more pixel dense the image is, the larger it is, the bigger the file size. So smaller files have less pixel information, so they're literally a smaller size as well as a smaller file. So if you take, say, a 500 by 500 pixel raster image and you try to blow it up to 1000 by 1000, you're doubling the size of it, but the pixel density hasn't changed. So things are going to start getting blurry as whatever program you're using to view the image is stretching it beyond its capacity. So it's trying to create pixels that weren't there, and so it's guessing, and that's where you get that fuzzy pixelation. Vector graphics, on the other hand, are nothing more than mathematical formula under the hood that tells the program, make a line here, draw a circle there, do an arc over here. And so whether it's a 20 pixel by 20 pixel or a 2 million pixel by 2 million pixel image, it's going to be just as crisp as anything in between because the program is running the math behind it and just creating these lines and shapes and curves and everything. So it's always going to be the same crispness. So hit OK. I now have my first artboard up. I'm going to go ahead and double click over here and start with the success symbol because as you can see here, the success symbol is nothing more than an 8-pointed star, which is going to be fairly easy to do because right over here I have my star tool. You can see that it has this little triangle in the corner. If you click on that, you see all these other shapes we can do, but we're just going to worry about the triangle for now. Also of note, up here you can see I have my snapping turned on. So when I put my cursor toward the center, you see that green line that appears. Even though my crosshair is a little bit off, it's snapping to the center line. And then there's also a red line that appears horizontally when you get to the center. So when you have a shape selected and you click the mouse button, it's going to start drawing from that location. As you can see, it's not being the dimensions are whatever I make it to be. If I hold the shift key, it keeps the dimensions the same, but still the starting point is where I click my mouse. Now if I go here to the center and I hold Command and Shift because I'm on a Mac, then you click, it's going to size it appropriately from where you clicked and outward as opposed to down and out. So with the GeneriSys success symbol, again, it's an 8-pointed star. So we can easily go up here, hit that number or that down arrow, and then we can go ahead and change the number of sides. Another thing I'm going to do is come over here. This, where it has this kind of donut shape, that's your stroke. It's the outside edge of it. We're going to go ahead and make that transparent. And the inner fill, we're going to make it black because the GeneriSys symbols are black. And then we also have in the success symbol, it has this kind of circular cutout in it. So we have this amazing circle tool here. And again, center, command, shift, mouse click. Gonna make it about that big. And this time the fill is gonna be white. So that looks pretty darn close to what we have over here. Probably could change this. Gonna go ahead and click on this little chain here. So we're gonna keep the same, make it 33 by 33 instead, give it a little bit more breathing room. So that's pretty much the GeneriSys success symbol. Now, one thing I am gonna do is I'm gonna grab my rectangle tool and just make a background. We're gonna go ahead and make this a nice dark blue color, then drag this to the bottom so everything else is on top. And now we see a slight problem. We have a black star with a white circle. It's not a transparent circle. Whoops. I'm gonna go ahead and lock that so I don't accidentally select that instead. Make sure that I am still centered on everything. So what I can do is if you select both objects at the same time, up here you have this subtract button, which is going to take wherever they are overlapping and cut it out. One thing to pay very close attention to is right here it says star. So right now that's a star shape. As soon as I use any of these buttons up here and click, it cuts out. It's now transparent. The hole in the center is an actual hole and not a different shape, but it now says curve. And when you have it selected, right up here where I had my ability to select how many sides and points it had and all that, is gone because it's no longer a star. It's now just a curve. So I'm going to hit Command Z to undo. And now with my star selected, I have all of these options back because it is a star shape. So once you use any of these up here, it makes it a curve instead of a shape. So make sure before you do any of that, you have everything set the way you want it to be. Now, since I'm doing my own take on the GeneriSys symbols, I'm not going to be doing it exactly like they have it. And one thing I did notice is that we have our advantage and threat symbol, which are hollow on the inside. And then we have our failure symbol, which is fully black. There's no inner anything. But our success symbol has that inner circle filled in, or rather that inner circle empty. So it doesn't quite match up. We have hollow, 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 filled. So I'm going to keep these two as hollow and then have the success and failure be both filled in. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. And just like that, it's already different and more unique. But I kind of like the look of odd number of points as opposed to even number of points. So I'm going to go ahead and make mine a 9 point. And then this here inner radius determines how pointy everything is. It defaults to 38, but I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit fatter. We'll go to 43. This outer circle determines if it's a very sharp pointy points or if they're rounded. We're going to go ahead and leave that where it is. Then inner circle, if you can see right along here, it is making it more of a curved as opposed to a hard point. And we do have a kind of a curve on each of the points, but the curve is this way instead of, it's weird, so we're not going to even bother with that. So I have my 9-pointed star. I'm going to go ahead and, since this is 200 by 200, I'll go ahead and make the height and width 190, and then go up here to my alignment. line it horizontally, line it vertically. I could also click and drag. Either way, here's my success symbol. Really simple, really easy. I can turn off my background, but I'm gonna leave the rectangle here, but instead of the blue circle, instead of the blue color, I'm gonna go ahead and make that transparent. So when it comes time to export, I can select everything and, oops, I wanna be able to select everything. So I can select everything, which is the rectangle as well as the star. Damn it. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that that is all just under my success symbol. So when I select this and I do export, then I can export the entire thing with no background. So there's gonna be a little bit of room between the point and the edge. Otherwise, if I were to just export the star, you can see the outline blue box here is what would be exported, so there's not as much space on either side. But when I select everything, that blue area is what's going to be exported, so that is what we're going to export. So earlier, when we created the document, we clicked on the Create Artboard. And I'm going to show you what that means now. When we go over here, we have this Artboard tool. I can click on Insert Artboard, and now you can see I have the second artboard. We're going to go ahead and name this Failure. So we're going to make this our failure symbol. And so this is what artboards do. Instead of having a different file for each shape, we're just going to go ahead and make one file that has so I'm going to go ahead and make one file that has all of the shapes in their own artboards, so I can export them individually, but I don't have a plethora of different files on my hard drive. So the failure symbol, we're going to go ahead and center that more. If we come over here and look, the failure is kind of an X shape, but not exactly an X. So I'm going to go ahead and use my star shape one more time. And we're going to, whoops, that didn't work. And we're going to go and click and drag, but it's not a 5-pointed star. We're going to make it a 4-pointed star. Now, as you can see, the 4 points are in the up, down, left, right direction, as opposed to on the failure symbol, which is an X. So what I could do is grab this little dealy here and rotate it around. If you hold shift, it'll rotate on 15-degree increments. So we want it at 45 degrees. And my shift key is a little janky. Otherwise, we can come down here to R, which stands for rotation, and we can rotate it that way. We're going to take the inside and fill it. And to make it a little bit more noticeable, we're going to take this inner radius and make it a lot smaller so it looks more like an X. No, we don't really want to deal with that. Any outer circle, it's just going to make it a little fatter. So what I am going to do actually is we're going to go over here to the stroke. I'm going to make that black and then go to the stroke options here, just so we can easily see what's happening with the stroke. I'm gonna make it transparent for now, but just so you can see what I'm doing, since otherwise the stroke and the fill color are the same. If we create that cap, so right now the alignment of the stroke, as you can see, is centered on the shape. We can do an inside alignment where the stroke is on the inside, or we can do an outside alignment. And you can see that it kind of makes it a little curved. So with the join, we can do the default is at curved. We can do a point, which, because we are on the outside, it doesn't really have that actual point. But if we go to this miter, I'm not really sure what exactly miter means or what it does, but if you make the number big enough, you can see that it comes back to the point. but I kind of like that cut flat edge look to it from this bevel join. And then that also affects the right over here where it joins any line. So that gives us a little bit of a unique look there. And then if we go ahead and increase, maybe that's a little too much, increase it to make it a little bit thicker. Go back and fill in with black again. So now we have these kind of chopped off edge looks to it, which looks like the failure symbol here, but it's definitely a more pointy edge. So it's inspired by, but not exactly the same as the failure symbol. That was pretty easy. I'm gonna go ahead and close that down. Gonna click on our Artboard tool, create another one. This one we're gonna call Triumph, which what I'm gonna do is grab the success star and then just paste it in here, because as we can see in the GeneriSys symbols, Triumph is nothing more than the success symbol inside a circle. So I am gonna go over here to the star tool, click and hold, and I'm gonna create a donut. I'm gonna go ahead and snap to the center, Command Shift click. And just kind of drag it out to there. The inside we're gonna make hollow. Whoops, no, that's not what I want. Give me my donut, make the inside black. What I'm gonna do is take this hole radius, which determines how big the hole is, and just kind of pull it to, I don't know, let's try 92%. And as you can see, it is the outer circle. You know what, let's make that a little bit less, the inner hole radius, so it's gonna make that circle a little bit thicker, because that one there is pretty thick. And so that is our Triumph symbol. We've got the circle, we've got the success symbol, boom, pretty easy. So we're gonna click on our Artboard tool, insert Artboard, and you guessed it, we're going to do the despair symbol. First thing I'm gonna do is grab the failure, Command C for copy, click on the Artboard, Command V for paste, boom, just like that. Now the despair symbol has this kind of, there's both a circle and a square going around it, which is an interesting thing to do. So we're going to go ahead and do the square first. Again, center, Command Shift click to create the square. And then we're definitely going to make the inside transparent. And then gonna hold Shift and Command, move it down till it matches. And then again, we're gonna rotate, hold Shift till we're at a 45-degree angle. I like that. We're gonna definitely increase the stroke here, but it's actually a square, so we're gonna make sure that the join is set on the angle. And I could go ahead and do the donut trick again to make a circle going within it. I just want to make sure that is centered properly. Okay. Make a circle going around as well, but I kind of like the more angular look of that without having it be super busy with a 4-pointed star, a circle, and the square. And also, now that I look at it, this is a slightly different thickness than here on the Triumph. So I'm going to move back over here and let's see. So that was 5 pixel width. I'm going to go ahead and delete the donut and make a circle instead. go ahead and change the size just a little bit to make sure that it's covering up. As you can see, we have a few of the points coming out. So we're going to go ahead and make it a little bit bigger. Command Shift and Begin. There we go. And now we have that 5-point width on the circle there, which matches the 5-point stroke on the square over here. So that makes it a lot more uniform, having the same basic size and thickness of everything. One thing I do also want to make sure I do is click on this Scale with Object. Well, actually first, if I were to make this bigger, that really doesn't do much, so we're just going to go ahead and ignore that. So I'm going to go ahead and click this Scale with Object. Otherwise, if you make it smaller, see how when I make it smaller, the stroke stays the same thickness, which is something that we definitely do not want. But if we scale with Object, as it gets smaller, the stroke stays proportionate to the size of everything. So I'm going to go over here and make sure that is scaling with Object as well. And the failure symbol has a stroke, but the success symbol does not have a stroke, so we don't have to worry about Scale with Object on that. So I'm going to go ahead and make those all smaller. And now that we have success, failure, triumph, and despair, I'm wondering if I can grab these artboards. Oh, look at that. Can grab those artboards, put them there. Click on my artboard tool up here, insert another artboard. And just because I can, gonna pull this up here. Why not? This one is going to be, actually, first off, we're gonna come over here. And this one is going to be our threat symbol, which when we look, we have this circle with these kind of 3 diamonds. And when I describe it to people, I kind of mention that it looks kind of like a targeting crosshair, that, you know, it's a threat because you're in their sights, which is kind of like a 3-pointed star, right? So I'm going to go back to my star tool, and I just am very much enjoying using star for now. So I will make that a little bit smaller. So we're going to move this to a 3-pointed star as opposed to the 5-pointed, which it defaults to. So we have this here, and I'm actually going to grab this inner radius and move it in a little bit, say 26% inner radius. Make sure it's actually no, because we are making the threat and advantage symbol, we're making those hollow. I definitely don't want to turn the stroke off. So we're going to go ahead and, again, to keep things uniform, I'm going to use that same 5-point stroke. And notice how, there we go. I was going to say, because even though it was quote-unquote centered when I started, now that it's a 3-pointed star, the center has changed. If I click and drag, it now is positioning it in the center of the shape, in the center of my canvas. So I can go ahead and hold Shift and drag that out a little bit, make it slightly bigger, and boom, there we go. And so what I'm going to do for the advantage symbol is we're just going to take this basic shape, but we're going to make sure that the corner or the lines here are straight instead of having them be all bended inward. So actually, just You know, we'll make that a little bit more noticeable and make it 23% inner radius. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Insert Artboard. And then I'm going to go ahead and for my threat, copy, come over here, paste. I'm going to rename this to Advantage. And then I'm going to zoom in on the artboard. So one thing that I kind of touched on in the beginning that I'm definitely going to use now is right now I have a 3-pointed star. It is a star object. It has specific properties. And if I want to change, say, this bend, it's going to change all 3 of them because it's a star. But I can go to Layer, Convert to Curves, which it's now just a line. And then I can move over here to my node tool, can choose this. Actually, first off, before I do that, if I take this inner radius and just go all the way to 0 to make it an actual triangle, you'll see what is going on in my crazy brain right now. And then we're going to convert this to a curve, node tool again, select that. I'm going to come down here and look at where that location of that specific curve is. 62.2 by 100. I'm going to click on this node. It's 137.8, 100. Okay, so now I can go back to Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, all the way back to my 23% inner radius. And then go Layer, Convert to Curves, select my node tool again, select this node, and it was at 62.2, 100. Select this node. It was at 137.8, 100. And so that way, instead of having to convert it to curve and then drag it out, try to guess where straight is, I made it straight. I converted to a curve. I wrote down the X and Y coordinates of what straight looked like. So then I could go back in, and that way I could leave the bottom to have this exact same 23-degree inner radius that matches our threat. But our threat is more angular because it has all 3 sides bent in, as opposed to our advantage, which is just the bottom that is pulled up. And as you can tell by the advantage symbol here versus this one, the official GeneriSys symbol has a lot higher or more steep curve to the bottom. So when you look at that, my version, it looks like the advantage symbol, but it's not a direct replica. So again, my personal take on a GeneriSys inspired symbol, but not actually the GeneriSys symbols themselves. So that is everything in a nutshell. If I wanted to, one of the nice things about the artboard, when I export, I can choose which artboard to export, or I can do one document that has every single thing done. Can export as a PNG, JPEG, GIF, TIFF, all of these different options. SVG and EPS are vector graphics. PNG, JPG, GIF, TIFF are all raster graphics. I'm not sure about PSD. PDF depends on the reader, will depend on if it's vector or raster. I have no idea what any of these are, so I'm not even going to touch those. But there you go. There are my 6 symbols for a GeneriSys inspiration, but not 100% taken from GeneriSys. So I hope you've enjoyed this little experiment, and I will go ahead and make a GitHub repo with all of these symbols. They will be linked in the show notes, released under a Creative Commons Attributions Non-Commercial License. So if you want to use them in your home products and not have to worry about the copyright of GeneriSys, you can go ahead and use my symbols. Thank you very much for tuning in, and hope to see you next time.